Hey, namaste. So in this video, I am going to do my best to see how the third step and the third step prayer specifically, how that relates to passages of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is on the battlefield with Arjuna and kind of giving him the breakdown of how things are. There's definitely a part in the Gita that references that bondage of self, and I want to go through and check out what Krishna says to Arjuna about that and how to deal with that and how to live life mindfully of that. That said, I'm going to go ahead and read the third step prayer when it comes to the third step out of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the program that I follow personally, so I'm going to be going based off of that. And I'm going to go ahead and read it off of my phone so I don't accidentally use the wrong word for anything. So it goes as follows. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. So with that, the Bhagavad Gita is one of the main literary points of Hinduism. It is a book on Krishna speaking to Arjuna as they're on the battlefield, which the battlefield can be viewed in the sense of just life, going through life and dealing with these different issues and dealing with these different archetypes of people, situations, applying that purpose to a broad sense of the human struggle of spirituality and having a soul and wanting to know, if there's anything more and what is the purpose of being here and how do I do this, right? So the Bhagavad Gita is a great breakdown of all of that. And even if you're not really into Eastern philosophy or Dharmic philosophy, it's still an amazing read, and I definitely would suggest it. Like I said, because this is on a battlefield, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna in the sense of a warrior. So a lot of the description and pretty much the whole storyline is about, Arjuna being a warrior, so looking at life as a warrior. So out of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 38 and 39. Prepare for war with peace in thy soul. Be in peace in pleasure and pain, in gain and in loss, in victory or in the loss of battle. In this peace there is no sin. This is the wisdom of Sankhya, the vision of the eternal. Hear now the wisdom of yoga, path of the eternal, and freedom from bondage. Preparing for war with peace in your soul. Coming to that ultimate peace, it comes with identifying as the witness, not as ego, not as body, not as personality, not as any of that, but identifying with the part of us that is eternal, the part of us that reincarnates, the part of us that the universe playing itself out through this human experience. Being able to take a step back at any point and overlooking our entire lives as the battlefield, while identifying with that true nature of ours, whether it's the Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, the Buddha nature, that true nature of us that is eternal, there is an overwhelming sense of peace that comes with it. I've had little glimpses of it, nothing like a lot of the people that teach this subject, right? So just the little glimpses, that's what I spoke on in my other video, that's where true joy lies. That is being present in the moment and seeing life from way back, being able to step back and be the witness and looking at it. So preparing for war with peace in thy soul, no matter it's victory or loss, it's the same. I'm the same if I'm in pain. I'm the same if I'm happy. I'm the same if I'm hungry. I'm the same if in the past I've relapsed and I've messed up and I'm beating myself up and I'm super guilty. I'm the same viewing all of that the emotions come and go. That's not permanent. That's not real, right? It can feel really real. It's relatively real. Let's say that, because emotions can, it definitely affect and inform all of our decisions. But being able to take a step back from that allows one to go into any situations in life in peace, right? An example that I can try to relate to this is the first time I was asked to bring a topic and tell a bit of my story in front of a decent amount of people. Going into it, I was so extremely nervous. I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of what if I mess up? I don't know what to say. I was living in the bondage of self. I was living in, what are people going to think about me? I was living in, if I say something dumb, they're going to think 5 years down the line, remember that time that dude said that really dumb thing at this meeting? And in all reality, nobody probably even thought about that 30 minutes after the meeting and after the group where I shared, right? So prior to going in, I spent some time doing some meditation and a lot of prayer, and I read through, some of the Gita. And what I can tie into this with another part of the Gita that Krishna teaches is that it is key not to focus on the outcome of an action. It's key to focus on the action itself. So prior to going in and sharing my story and sharing the topic and giving my take on things, I was able to separate a little bit out of ego, out of personality, and go into the witness standpoint and go, wow, I'm feeling really anxious about this. I'm taking this extremely seriously. I'm very, very centered in self right now, worried about what other people are going to think. Because I was worried about the outcome of my action instead of the action itself. It got to a point where I almost didn't do it, right? Who am I to back out and not do that when I'm praying, hey, speak through me, help me up, help other people. At that point, I can't take a step back, because who knows, when I worry about saying something dumb, what if I said something that really made a difference and affected somebody, and something clicked in their mind? Getting completely out of that bondage of self and being so self-centered and worrying what other people are going to think, I was able to go forward with doing the meeting. So I still think to this day I didn't do a great job with it, but what matters is I did it, right? And it sparked a really, really neat conversation after I did my share, and I think that was the valuable part, is a lot of people said some really cool stuff that I just wasn't capable of articulating, and the topic I brought, I don't feel I did a great job, but the act of doing it opened the door for that conversation where people that were more well-versed on the topic and could articulate and more comfortable with sharing could take over and do their thing. And I heard God speak through many other people who, I did my part of it. I carried out the action, and I felt some good came from it. Had I backed out of that, had I set everybody into panic and scramble mode of who are we going to find to fill this spot, and, he's not doing it, that opens the door to resentment, and then me, feeling like, oh, I let everybody down, and, putting up walls between me and my fellow people that I hang out with, that I'm really close with. So pretty much I took a step back, and I just went into it, accepting that whatever the outcome is none of my business. I just have to show up. I have to suit up and show up, as they say in AA. Following verse, it talks about, I don't want to get it wrong, so I will read things out of the sacred texts, right? So, this is the wisdom of Sankhya, the vision of the eternal. Hear now the wisdom of yoga, path of the eternal, and freedom from bondage. So this goes on to say that yoga is the freedom from bondage. Now, in the West, a lot of people associate yoga with hatha yoga, where it's the movement of the body, right? And that is a form of yoga, but there are many other kinds. There's bhakti yoga, there's karma yoga, there's ghana yoga, raja yoga. That's not all of them, but that's all that's coming to the top of my head right now. So yoga is union, right? It is union with source. It is being at one with the universe, or God, or higher power, however you want to call it, or self, right? So there are many different practices to incorporate to be able to operate out of the point of view from the witness and have that peace in any situation. These yoga practices are, in my experience, the way to go, right? So karma yoga, right? That's acting. It's essentially service with no need for anything back. It's just service. Bhakti yoga is devotional yoga. That is going through life, doing things for your God. And there's different practices within all of these. Bhakti yoga is what I originally, when I was practicing Buddhism and got interested in Hinduism, it was through Bhakti yoga that I was really introduced, and it resonated with me. And it is the easier path to do, because everything can be devotion for your God. I find that doing my meditations, doing my japa, the mantra on the deity's name, meditating, thinking of the deity, going through life, just doing things for God. Everything living is a spiritual practice. And you have Gnana Yoga, which is knowledge, which is reading the sacred literature and all of the ancient texts, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita. Raja Yoga is the meditation, is the movement yoga. All of these things combined really help bring that inner stillness and that realization of what the true self is. With me, for me, in my program, the real realization of true self and the relief of bondage of self was when I realized that I was identifying self with personality and ego and body, instead of identifying self as the witness. When I made that realization, it made so much more sense in the 3rd-step prayer, and the 12-step program made a lot more sense. Through AA, they always say this is, it's a spiritual condition, no, we were beyond human aid. We had to rely on a higher power, or a power greater than ourselves. And it really stood out to me reading the Gita that there was this verse on the bondage of self. And it was just so plain as day, oh yeah, this makes sense. I'm doing all of these practices, and when I am actively doing these practices and living my life in different forms of yoga, right, whatever it resonates with me at the time, there's not one correct path. This path of spirituality altogether as a whole is an incredibly personal experience. So what's right for me might not be right for you. What's right for me today might not be right for me tomorrow. So I have a blend of things that I do currently, but getting into a pattern of a spiritual style of life, that then enables that spiritual contact, that connection that we so desperately need for the 12 steps to work to stay sober. It just becomes a way of life. Everything is devotional. Everything is for God. So through practicing, the AA steps and the principles that go along with that program, in combination with a yoga lifestyle, right? A spiritual lifestyle, I should really say. Through the practice of various forms of yoga, I've found that it's not about me. It's about how I can help. It's about service. It's about what can I do to help make the world a better place. And through doing that, as corny as it sounds, especially to anyone that's first kind of, poking around with the idea of either getting sober or these spiritual practices, by living that way and by living in service and getting out of self, a lot of those desires for the destructive behaviors slip away on their own. It's not an active fight or struggle daily with I can't drink and I want to, or that's not really a thought that crosses my mind anymore. And that's a byproduct of living in a way that is karma yoga, bhakti yoga. It's service. It's doing for others. There's a saying in AA that you keep what you have by giving it away, and that isn't just for the program. I found that applies to life in general. The peace of mind that I have these days, my joy, the happiness, my ability to be in the witness, I can keep all of that by helping others in any way that I can to see that that's a possibility, right? It's not me that's doing it, right? It's God doing the work through me. It is amazing the parallels between the Bhagavad Gita and 12-step programs and their teachings. It addresses the bondage of self that we desperately ask to be removed from. It addresses the desires and how the desires fall away, and it addresses so many different aspects of addiction. At the end of the day, the suffering is caused from attachment, clinging, and aversion. Well, what is addiction? It's attachment to the way we feel whenever we are drinking or using, right? It's clinging to how we feel and how we want things to be, and feeling that way all the time. And it's aversion to life on life's terms. It's aversion to sobriety. It's aversion to living, essentially, right? If we're numbing ourselves, if I numb myself and then I get sober and I'm not doing any spiritual program and I'm not doing any of this work, being sober is impossible for me. I've tried many a times to just stop, and I can, like I said in my other video, I can be abstinent from the alcohol or drugs for some amount of time. But that obsession, that desire, that craving, that attachment, and this aversion to sobriety, all of those things combine and they create the suffering, right? The suffering that we use to avoid, that we drink to avoid, which ends up causing more suffering. So there's a lot of parallels with Hinduism and the 12 steps. So if you're not quite there yet, maybe just pick up some yoga classes or do some meditation at home, and start doing those kind of practices where you're not in 12 step, you're not going to meetings or doing that, right? You're not ready for it. That's cool. I wasn't ready for it for a very long time. But I found that by doing meditation and by doing yoga and by getting interested in the spiritual lifestyle and these different things that I can do, the desire to continue getting messed up slowly started fading, and my willingness to actually do something about it went up. And I found that that was my way to get into the rooms. That is my experience. Hey, namaste.